So today I'm working on a watercolor painting. I've just gone down to my local art shop. I wanted to get some really big sheets of watercolor paper, but they were all sold out. All I could get was this hot pressed A3 pad. For the artwork I'm doing, it's only going to be about A4, so more than enough room to play with. But the artwork itself is going to be for a restaurant that friends of mine own. I've done quite a lot of work with them in the past, and they have started doing a Sunday market because they're unable to trade because of COVID. So at their market, they're selling all of their fresh produce that they grow at their farm. And I thought it'd be really cool to do a series of prints and sell them at the market. At their farm, they grow natives and they sell those flowers at their market as well. So I'm going to be doing a watercolor painting interpretation of those natives. I've already shot my reference images. I've put them into Photoshop and come up with a bit of a composition. So I'll take you across to the computer and we can have a look at that. I am going to have these prints up online as well, so I'll throw that link down below once they are live. And yeah, if anyone's interested, I'll have worldwide shipping available. But for now, let's jump across to the computer and I'll show you what I've done composition-wise.
Alright, so as you can see here, just created a folder with all of my reference images in it. Just set up basically a couple of sheets of paper as a bit of a background and just started shooting a bunch of images that I could use as reference to start to play with the layout of the flowers themselves, as well as taking some more detailed shots that I can reference if needed. And then I jump across to Photoshop. I just messed with the levels a bit, played with the shadows and highlights and the overall contrast of the image. And then I was pretty happy with this this main reference image. I also quite liked this one, but I decided to go with this first one here. But I did decide that I wanted the flowers to have a little bit more impact and to be facing the viewer a little bit more. So I've just gone ahead and cropped in a couple of other angles of the flower, particularly this one, and just blended it into my original reference images. And I just wanted it to have a little bit more impact. So yeah, this was my final reference image. I'm going to be doing a pretty loose interpretation of this for the actual painting itself, wanting to thin out this middle section quite a bit because it is quite dense in there. But yeah, overall this is going to be the groundwork for my painting. So let's jump across to my desk and we'll get set up.
Everything over here is set up. Got my paper taped down just with some painter's tape. Got my A4 composition marked out, and I'm just going to sketch in super roughly my design, my composition, before inking and later painting. And yeah, let's just dive right into it. Alright, so as you can see here, I've just gone ahead and sketched in pretty roughly my line work. Now I'm going to just come over the top and ink it in. But at this point, I was sort of thinking about it. I haven't done any watercolor painting in quite a while, so I wanted to do a little study before I got started on my final painting. So I just did this little study. Spent about half an hour on it, and I'm also just wanted to work on my workflow and how I'm going to approach this painting. So I sketched it in, I then inked it using one of these dip pens and some waterproof ink, and then I came over the top and just laid in my my watercolor paints. And I think I want to go for this kind of illustrative style and approach, where using some cross hatching and some really dark outlines, and then just using the watercolor to bring in some color leaving white sections, the highlights, just leaving as the color of the paper, as opposed to trying to add white watercolor paint. And yeah, that's about it. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this little study turned out, and now I can get started on my actual painting. So yeah. Alright, so I've gone in and gotten the majority of my outline done here. You're gonna have to forgive this massive shadow, it's just my microphone, so just while I'm doing this little talking part. But the ink's dried, so I'm just gonna come back over and now erase my pencil work that is underneath my ink work. I just don't want it to be muddy at all, or when I'm painting my watercolor, I don't want to pick up any of the grey lead as I go. So I'm just going to erase all that. That is going to give us a much nicer, clearer outline to begin painting with. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I'm looking forward to putting some paint on and seeing how we go. The one thing that I've got in mind whilst I'm working on this is that it is quite busy in this middle section here, so I think I'm going to be using quite a lot of highlights and letting the paper sort of really shine through in these leaves, particularly in the middle, just so it's not this massive dark block section of colour in the centre. So that's the only thing I'm a little bit hesitant about, but aside from that, making good progress. And that's a wrap. Overall, I'm really happy with this piece. I've just finished it here now. I've added, as you can see, this sweeping black line that starts at the top of the piece and sweeps down into the top of the vase. Also added this black outline of this vase and this kind of cool swirl down the bottom here. Overall, I just wanted to make it a little bit more modern and a little bit more interesting. I could have left it how it was without the addition of the black elements, and I still would have been pretty happy with it, but I just wanted to create some more impact. So overall, I'm really glad that I pushed myself. But from here, I'm just going to photograph it. We'll send it off to the printers. It'll take a couple days and I'll have prints back. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Pretty much just going to leave it there. I'll have a little bit of B-roll at the end here. and hopefully I will have some footage of the prints as well so you can see how they turned out.
So once you've finished your artwork, you've got arguably one of the hardest parts left to go when creating prints, and that is photographing and editing your artwork ready to be actually printed. So I forgot to shoot some footage when I was photographing, but as you can see here, I've just got my artwork taped onto a large sketchbook. I then had that sketchbook up on my easel under a downlight, and then used a photography light to fill out some of the lighting in the scene. Probably the most important part is to just try and get a really clear, consistent light source, not have any shadows or anything like that covering your image. And yeah, this for me is the hardest part to get right. As you can see here, it's not perfect. It's a little bit darker at the bottom of the image than it is at the top. But once I brought it into Photoshop here, set it up on my A4 document, I adjusted the levels, just brought some of that brightness back as it was a little bit underexposed. But yeah, as you can see, it's a little bit lighter up the top here as it is down the bottom here. And that's just because I didn't get my lighting quite perfect. Lucky my print guy is a bit of a wizard and he just fixed that up for me. But I could have duplicated the layer and adjusted the brightness and then blended it out, but I just left it as it was, and yeah, I had trust and faith in my print guy. But basically once that was done, I just exported it out in high resolution, just simply as a PDF. Emailed that off to my, where is PDF? There it is. Yeah, emailed this off to my print guy, and he basically takes care of the rest.
So I've just gotten back from picking up my final run of prints here. I'm really stoked with how these have turned out. I'm just yet to sign and number them down at the bottom. But yeah, I'm going to have a link for these in my description down below. Worldwide shipping will be available. They are just A4s, and yeah, really stoked with how they have turned out. The rest of them are going to be up for grabs at Oh My Restaurant's Sunday Market here in Beaconsfield for anyone that is in Melbourne and managed to sell the original. So yeah, overall really happy with this little project. I hope you guys have found it rather helpful, and for now I'll catch you in the next video.